Hey everybody, welcome to Fit Tip Tuesday, a few days after Christmas. I hope if you celebrate Christmas, you had a very Merry Christmas and had time to celebrate with your family and close friends, and I hope you were all safe. I'm going to start today by opening a few more packages I got for Warm Hats for All, and I'm just going to be a little speedy about it because I'm kind of excited about the topic for today. I'm going to be answering a question I got under one of my videos regarding how to make flared jeans like gallery department jeans. So we're going to be doing that in just a minute. Let me just see here. Oh, look at these are very nice. I love the plaid. Let me just see. Hi Jennifer, these two hats are for your collection. Sorry it took so long. I had to wait for fleece to arrive. Looking forward to taking your class on the 9th. Sherry. Thank you, Sherry. I can't wait for you to be in class either. I'm teaching a serger techniques for garment sewers starting the 9th of January for Stitches at Home. So that's the class Sherry's going to be in, and she made some hats, so thank you very much. I'll put a link to that class description in the comments in case you're interested in checking that out. Love these hats. All right, let's see. All right, here we have a priority box. Just a note, I am a member of the Boston chapter of ASG. I saw your video on YouTube about making some hats, which you will distribute to whoever needs them. Thank you so much for this effort. I have made a few hats for this purpose. Sorry for not getting them out sooner. Wish you a very happy, healthy holiday season. Sincerely, Parabha. I hope I didn't pronounce your name too terribly wrong. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Let's check out these hats. Oh, wow. Look at this. This is exciting. Oh, look at how cool that is. She did a little bit of a different version here. I love it. Very, very nice. She made 1, 2, 3, 4. She had made 6 hats, so we're up to 8. I think we're going to be over, well over 50 hats once I open this box. All right, let's see. Let's get in here. These are my crappy scissors, so nobody freak out. I'm not using my good paper, my good fabric scissors. You know, and if you're making hats and you're worrying that it's taking you too long, don't worry. There's plenty of winter to come. So, you know, just, you know, if you decide you want to help, just do it at your own convenience. Hi, Jennifer. I enjoyed making the fleece hat. My email is blah, 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 blah. Woohoo! Thank you for sending your email addresses. Oh, look at this. She made a hat. And how stinking cute is that? Very cute. A headband. That counts. I love it. All right. Super excited. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I'm going to get these hats over to my sister-in-law, Jackie, tomorrow. And now let's talk about today's topic. You know, if anybody says to me, how do you do XYZ when you're working with jeans, I'm all over that. So the question was how to add flair to a ready-to-wear pair of jeans like gallery department jeans. So I looked it up and I was in shock at some of the price tags for these jeans. These jeans are going for $1,000. So I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I can show you guys how to do this so you don't have to pay $1,000. So just to keep the video a reasonable amount of length, I've already started these. So let me show you the details of where I am now, and then I'll show you how to get there. I have a collection of jeans that I bought at thrift stores, so I can take them apart and see how they're constructed, or You know, sometimes they have a cool detail. These particular jeans are very funky. I think they have like that acid wash kind of thing going on here. But basically, what you want to do is you want to find a couple pairs of jeans in your closet that you don't wear anymore because they're boring, or the style has changed, or you want to change the style of them. And the cool thing is, if they fit through the waist and rise, and we're just going to be dealing with the leg, this makes this a really fun, easy project. The first thing I did was I took apart the hems, and use your seam ripper to do that, because if you take your hems apart, a lot of times they have really cool detail that was created by the wash and wear process. I thought this hem was really cool, and I want to give you some tips for when you should use a seam ripper, when you should use your scissors, and when you should just rip. Okay, so starting out with the hems, you want to take those out with a seam ripper. And I have a pair of jeans here, another pair, and I'm just going to show you the easy way to take out a hem. So here's a hem, and you don't want to do this, you know, pick. You'll be there forever. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to stick the ball point underneath the fabric like this and slide. And literally, it's going to take apart that hem in a minute. Okay, so just, you know, start somewhere, and then you just stick the ball in, and I can see my point right here. You're just going to stick it in and slide. Oops. You make sure it's, you know, get it started first, and then you just want to slide along. This hem that I'm working on is really deteriorated. It's ripped, it's old, and chances are when I get it apart, it's going to be falling apart. But I just want to show you, literally, you just slide and it rips right out. And you never know how easy it's going to be to do this. Some hems will literally come apart in a minute. Others you might have to play with a little bit and be careful, but this is much easier than picking. And the reason why you stick the ball end inside is so it doesn't cut anything. So you can kind of keep track of your sharp end, which is kind of in view. So you just slide it along, and if you get it sliding along, you can feel that it's just cutting the threads. You know, you can get a few inches at a time. Okay, so that's how you take out your hem. And I'm just going to go around and finish taking this out. This one isn't coming out as easily as the pair that I'm working on, but you can see it just, and if you cuff or fold the pant leg like this, or your jean, the bottom of the hem like this, it makes it easier to get it in there. So I am just going to finish taking this one apart. You know, and I can see this hem is going to fall apart when I finish taking it out because it's so worn. But see how I'm just sliding it along the seam ripper? Okay, let me just finish. I want to take out one hem so I can show you how to do the side and inseams. Now, over the intersection of the heavy side or inseam, you might have to dig in there for a second. But you can see I'm almost done already. See, and I'm not tearing the fabric by doing that either. Okay, I'm almost done. I just have to do this little bit. Okay, so that takes my hem down. So now we can look at this. See, where it's falling apart is where the original fold on the hem was, but you can see it makes like a really cool detail, you know, and maybe you want to salvage this with a little, you could fuse some interfacing under there and fix that gap if you like to have that. Okay, but that's how you take out your hem with the seam ripper. I just want to show you two different ways to take apart the side and inseam. Okay, so you want to look at your side seam. Okay, let's do that one first. If your side seam is sewn with a chain stitch like this, you can't rip it. Okay, but if it's a standard 5-thread, okay, so your jeans may be constructed with a 5-thread stitch, which means it's just a regular stitch here with your 3-thread there, and it doesn't have this heavy thread. A lot of times you can rip it, but if they're using heavy thread in the needle, sometimes it's harder. So, you know, if you can't rip it, then you need to pick it. Okay, so on the side seams, you want to decide how high up the leg you want your little flared insert to be, because we're going to put little flared inserts on the sides. Okay, so you don't need to take out the entire side seam. You just want to take it up a little bit farther than you want to insert your flared piece of fabric. So in this case, yeah, see, in this case, I really cannot rip it. So you want to use your seam ripper, and this can be a little bit time consuming if you can't rip it. So just use your seam ripper and, you know, take it out to the length you want. Okay, and just to show you, I'm not going to take time during the video to pick that seam out, but I just want to show you. Okay, because see, these rip really easy. See, so either rip or pick out your side seams. Then for your inseam, you can see here, for my inseam, I cut along the top stitched finished edge. Okay, so on your inseams, you want to use your scissors and you want to cut. Get your scissors out and literally just follow along the ridge of the fabric like this. So see, you can just cut it all the way up. And I'm sort of leaning against the blade against that raised edge where the top stitch side is. Okay, so you end up with a raw edge and an edge that's kind of finished because you didn't really cut away the serged edge there. For the style I'm going to show you today, I actually cut the entire inseam straight through the crotch and back down apart. Okay, and I'm going to show you why I did that. So that's how you deconstruct your jeans. You pick out the side seams or tear them if you can, and you cut the inseams and you pick out your hems. All right, I made this little flat so I could design what I'm going to do, and I just want to draw for you what I decided. I decided along the along the front side seam, I just wanted to add a little triangle of flare like this. Okay, so it's gonna flare out the edge a little bit. Okay, so I'm adding a little triangle there to the side seams. Okay, and again, measure what you want to do, but just know, like, from here to here. So I did 14 inches. Okay, you can decide what you want to do in a minute. I mean, you don't have to do what I'm doing, but here's the piece that I cut out of a second pair of jeans. I cut out 2 triangles that are the length and the width I wanted. So I did 5 inches across the hem, 14 inches long, and you want to have the tip of your insert to be an inch, so when you sew it, it will completely get caught in the seam allowances and it'll be a point. So that's how you create the little flares on the side. Now in the back, I wanted something a little bit more dramatic, so I measured in maybe 5 inches on my jeans, and I measured up, and I also measured about an inch from the edge at the center back seam, and I connected that like this. Okay, so the first step to preparing the back is to cut that off. So I used the cut off piece, and you have 2 of them obviously, so pick the one that was the neatest to work with. So here's the piece I cut off of one of the legs. I laid this down on the front leg of a second pair of jeans, and I added flare. So I added about 2 extra inches at the hem. At the top, there was a 1/2 inch seam allowance added to each side, and I also added a 1/2 inch across the top because you have to sew that together before you insert it. The process is, after you cut out your pieces, so after I cut out these side godets, essentially, that will make the flare on the side seam, and I cut out the pieces for the back, I went to my serger and I clean finished all the edges. If you don't have a serger, you can use a 3-step zigzag on your sewing machine. Okay, but you want to finish these edges, and you also want to finish the cut edges of the side and inseams as well. Okay, so that's the first step. So after you cut everything off, cut your insert shapes, clean finish all the edges. So I did that. You really want to finish the inseam first because that's going to be the harder thing to sew together, because on one of the sides we're going to use a traditional seam, and on the other, on the front edge, when we sew the insert to the inseam, we're going to actually overlap the fabric edges and top stitch it down in place. So before you sew it on, you want to make sure it fits. And I can tell you, I sewed it on to the back inseam, and that fit perfectly. But then when I went to sew it to the front, it was too long for the front. So I want to show you how to check that before you start to sew. Okay, so just to remind us what we're doing, we cut this part of the back legs off, and then we created a wider piece to put back on to create flare at the hem. So it makes sense that it would fit when you go to sew it onto the back, but look what's happening now. When we go to sew it onto the front, it's got a curve, this piece has a curve to it, and when we go to sew it to the front is straighter, so it's shorter. So I want to show you how to fix that or adjust for that before you sew it on. So the first step is, I am going to just get my piece here, and you can see I took it apart because it didn't fit the first time. So let me show you now what I'm going to do to make sure it fits this time. I'm going to start at the hem, and I'm going to start in the front. Okay, and I'm going to pin it together at the front. So I'm going to match up my hems, and I'm just going to put it together with my clips. This isn't how we're going to sew it. I just want to make sure I'm walking it basically to see how it fits. So I'm just going to walk it 1 to 1 along my front like this. All right, and then when I get to the top, I can see it's about an inch too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch that up so it matches. So see, here's my front crotch seam, and I'm just going to pinch that fabric so it matches. And I'm going to use a real pin to pin that down. Okay, and then I'm just going to make sure nothing funky is going on with the other side of my leg here. I'm just going to match it 1 to 1 along my front. And I can kind of see that that's going to match now that I took out that extra. Okay. All right, so now that I've got that fitting, and actually it's a little bit It's a little bit too long again. I'm gonna just adjust my pin just a skosh here. All right, so that's where my seam is gonna be in the front. All right, so now I'm just gonna wrap my back leg around so I can just pin it together there too with my clips, or clip it together. And all I'm doing is making sure I get it the right length. So what's going to happen is when I get to the top, wherever it matches up, I'm going to mark that with a pin. You know, you want it to be nice and flat with your insert. You don't want the insert to pull and wrinkle, and it could cause it to not hang properly. All right, so here we are at the top of the back inseam. And again, it's right here where I need to pin it. So you can see, oops, I'm going to do that. All right, so it could be the stretch of the fabric. Every denim is different. So even if you know, cut it off and use your cut off denim piece to create a new pattern or a new insert piece like I showed you, really just take a minute and walk them to the front and back crotch and make sure that they fit. Let me see if I can do the other. I'm just gonna pin it to the other one too. I just want to make sure everything is good. And then we can sew this together. And instead of sewing the back to the front, like I originally did, I'm going to show you how to sew the front inseam first, because that's the one that we're not going to use a traditional seam with. Sometimes I think to myself, oh, I know what I'm doing, and I just haul off and do it, and then I get to a certain part in the project and I'm like, oops, I didn't think that part through. So this is one of those situations where, you know, you have to make sure it's right before you nail it down. All right, so again, I think I'm going to have to adjust that pin a little bit up at the top. Oh, actually, yeah, maybe a little bit. So let me just adjust this. Okay, let me see. It only takes a second to clip it together to see if it fits. It's much more time consuming if you nail it down and then it doesn't fit. So definitely take a minute to do this step. Yeah, all right, so I think yeah, I think that's good. All right, so I'm happy with that. So you can see here I have 2 pins. So I'm just going to draw with my green Sharpie marker here so you can see. My seam is going to be like this to here. So it's going to be on a slight diagonal like that. And then I'll just cut the extra off. So let me get all of these clips off and I'll get the sewing machine back up here and I'll show you how to finish this. All right, so I'm just going to sew it where my pins were. And then I'm just going to sew again here. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut off this extra. And I'm going to call it a day like that. And I'll just push it to one side. So there's my new center seam. It's on an angle because we made the front a little bit shorter than the back. All right, so now the next step is to attach the insert to the front. And you're going to see why we're doing this first in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to take my front and I am just going to use Wonder Tape to stick it to the front leg or the front inseam. So again, I'm just going to do Wonder Tape and I'm going to do it in 2 pieces. So here's 1 piece. And I'm just going to peel that off. Okay. And I'm just going to line that up like this. I'm using the edge of my tape as a guide to tape it on. See, so I'm just sticking it like this. Okay. And I'm just going to work all the way down the leg to the hem. Okay, and actually I can start at the hem and meet up in the middle too, because I want to make sure that my hem edge is exactly even with the hem of the jeans. So let's just do this section right here. If you don't have Wonder Tape, you can pin it together, but really you can find this Wonder Tape anywhere, like at any sewing store. So see, I'm just taping it on essentially. See? Okay, then I just have this one section in the middle here. So I'll just stick this under here. All right. All right, so see how nicely that fits now? Okay, so I think because my Wonder Tape is not being like super sticky, I'm gonna sew one side. So let me get my sewing machine back up. All right, so I'm gonna start let me start at the top and go down. So I'm just gonna line this up, and I'm gonna start just on the opposite side, or just at the very top of the opposite leg that I taped, and I'm gonna stitch it down really close to the edge. And when I go over the heavy end of the flat felled front crotch seam, I'm literally going to use my hand to wheel it across. So I'm turning the hand wheel with my hand, not pressing on the gas, so I have control. All right, now let's sew this. And I am sewing just to the right side of the original top stitching. All right, so now let's tape the insert to the opposite front inseam. I'm going to just take my Wonder Tape and I'm going to stick it to the edge of the insert. Let me just do that much. All right, so I'm just going to get rid of my backing here. Okay, and I'm just going to set that right on top. Okay, and then let's just finish up the bottom here. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're just gonna line that right up. All right, and now I'm going to get my sewing machine and I'm going to sew this to secure it. All right, so let me just start at the hem edge this time because most of my fabric is going to be off to the left. Okay, we're almost to the top. And I'm going to go across my front crotch seam again, just to reinforce it. Let's hand walk here. Okay. Perfect. All right, so now that's secure. That was really the fussiest step because to finish inserting this to the back inseam, we're just going to sew a traditional seam. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it around so I can put right sides together here. And we're just going to sew it on like normal. So for this step I can use my Wonder Clips. And I'll first start by lining up that crotch, and then I'll just go in both directions. So let's just go down this direction first. You know, I can just get my hems together and sort of pull it to see. I wish I had taken the time to check before I sewed it on the first time, because that was annoying. So it's always better to check twice, cut once. Check twice, sew once. It can work for that too. But see, now we're going to have a nice fitting, you know, this will be nicely fitted on. And because I'm using Wonder Clips, I'm just going to clip both sides at once. I know I've been ranting and raving about how fabulous these Wonder Clips are. I really like them. Okay. Get my hems together. These are just a random pair of jeans that I had in my stash, so now that I see how fun this is coming out, I really wish I had used a pair that fit me, because I would totally wear these. All right, so we're all clipped together. I am now going to go back to the sewing machine and we're going to sew this entire inseam shut. I'm just going to go from hem to hem. So I'm going to start down here. And we'll just sew it right up. Okay, we're coming up to the top. be careful going over that heavy seam, the center back seam. Excellent. Let's see how this looks. Kind of excited. Okay, so the jeans were kind of turned inside out when I was doing that sewing. So let's look and see what we have. All right, so see, we've got this strip of fabric now. See how it looks like the original top stitching is along the front inseam, and we sewed a new seam to the back. And then when we get to the hem, you can see that, you know, it looks like that. I'm going to have to give my raw edge here a haircut. I'll do that, but that looks very cool. All right, so that was the hard part, doing the inseam. The side seams are really easy, and let me just show you how to sew those godets on. Like I said, I had already sewn, you know, one on, okay? Then to sew the second side, I'm gonna put right sides together. So I think, again, we're gonna have to turn our jeans inside out. You know, I'm gonna just pin it here to match with my clips. And I'm just going to pin it up at the top here. Just make sure. All right, I'm going to show you from this side so you can see how this has to work. There's just one little tricky spot, and you just need to clip the seam allowance. All right, so I'm going to start at the hem end here. And I'm just going to sew up to the top of the godet. All right, so see, I clipped the seam allowance here because we want this to lay flat and this to lay flat. I don't want it to be like that. Okay, so just clip the seam allowance and then sew right through. And that's how you'll get a nice pointy top to your flare, your godet. All right, let's take a look and see how cool this leg looks now that it's completely sewn around. All right, so look how cool this is. That's how it's going to look from the front. And remember, I said the side seam is going to be slightly to the front, so you can see the tip of it as you're walking forward. And then the back looks like this. I think that's very cool. All right, so that's how you create flared jeans from your straight leg jeans without spending tons of money for someone else to make them for you. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. I will put links to the Gallery Department Jean website so you can see what they're all about. and if you want to buy some jeans from them and support them, I think that's very cool. I will put a link to Warm Hats for All. So if you'd like to join us and make some fleece hats for people who need them, I will send you a coupon code for $10 off in my store, my online store, if you send me a hat. Just remember to include your email. And on Friday, it's my New Year's Day edition of FabFit Friday. I'm going to show you my completed road trip wallet that I've been working on, and I'm going to do a trunk show of all my Bernina Wearable Art fashion show garments. So that's going to be super fun and a great way to kick off the year, I think. So I hope you'll join me for that. And I just want to say Happy New Year's to everybody. Be safe on New Year's Eve, and I will see you on Friday.